It hasn't been since 1992 that there's been a municipal by-election in Vancouver, and this is ramping up to be a big deal. There's a lot of problems to solve in our city, and we at Access Television have invited candidates from One City and Sensible Vancouver. But we are lucky to have with us today, representing the Green Party, Pete Fry, and Independent, Jean Swanson, here to get into a little civic discussion with Imtiaz and I.
Right, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for inviting us.
I guess the big election issue and why you're both running, one of the reasons why you're both running, is the issues around housing and homelessness. So what is your position on that?
Well, obviously housing is the critical issue in the city, and it's affecting all stratas of the city as well. It's also affecting small businesses because a lot of small businesses can't even afford their employees. Their employees can't live in the city anymore. So it's percolated to the top. It's a real issue for all Vancouverites, not just people who are renting or people who are suffering homelessness or what have you. I think where things are really starting to change too is that I think a lot of voters are starting to become cognizant of the fact that developers are calling the shots at City Hall. And the Green Party is the only elected party that doesn't take developer donations. I know Jean also issues developer donations. I think fundamentally people are looking at the fact that that's a real conflict of ethics and interest when the very people who the land use decisions that City Hall makes are financing those same politicians. That's a conflict of interest, and I think people are waking up to that. I think they're looking for change.
Jean?
So we have a huge homelessness problem, over 2,000 homeless people on the streets. We have the average rent $2,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. We're calling for immediately ending homelessness by building modular housing, getting the money by hook or crook, just like the city got it for the Olympic Village, just like the city got it for the Arbutus Corridor. Taxing, we want a mansion tax. So if people have a house that's worth more than $5 million, they pay a higher rate of tax. That way we could get the money to build the social housing that we need. We need good social housing, beautiful social housing like they have in Vienna, where 60% of the housing is social housing with swimming pools and community centers and daycares. We can't rely on developers to build the housing we need anymore. We have to make housing a human right, not a commodity. So what we're talking about is a rent freeze, using all the city powers, the powers of housing agreements, the power of its tenant protection policy, to freeze rents as much as we can, and the rents we can't get that way, to call for a provincial rent freeze, to open up City Hall so that it becomes a center of people who can work for justice and bring the voice of people working for justice to City Hall and push on the province for the powers that we need to make the city affordable.
So Jean, you're touching on the multi-level cooperation that's needed in solving homelessness. And as I understand it, the powers of municipal government are not as far-reaching as we'd like them to be. So there are developer privileges that we've seen in the past few years. So specifically, how can, as a city, and issuing business licenses and inspecting rundown places, what other powers can...
Well, so, and Jean touches on an excellent point. The fact of the matter is that rent freezes and all that kind of stuff, it is the Resident Tenancy Act for the province of British Columbia. So it's pretty complicated to amend. It needs the legislature to amend. What I would like to see us do as a city is actually have our own renter's office. So currently, if you have an issue with your landlord or what have you, you have to go to the RTB, which is a provincial agency. If we had a city office of the renters, we could actually tie in a lot of development permits, renovation, building applications, which currently is a little bit ambiguous and murky, and we don't use it to apply the standards maintenance bylaw. And it allows a lot of these sort of cosmetic renovations that allow landlords to evict renters and then come back with a higher rent, cosmetically renovated property. And we see this all over the city. So if we had a city office that could empower renters, could give them the supports and the resources to tie them into the RTB and TRAC and all the other agencies that can support them, and tie it with the development permits so that we're keeping tabs on that and we're not allowing this kind of thing to go unfettered. We also need to start loosening up some of the red tape. There's a ton of grandfathered illegal rentals throughout the city, basement suites, what have you. The city's new direction on single-family home zones is to allow stratification of them. So they'll allow you to put in a legal basement suite, a legal laneway house, but there's strata units. So they become a vehicle for speculation. So what we really need to be doing is making it easier for those illegal rental suites to be brought up to code, to make them legal, to make them safe, livable, and habitable, but not break the bank and cost landlords and keep the costs down and make sure that we're actually providing affordable rental in the city.
Okay, and Jean?
There's a lot that the city can do with the laws that it has now. For example, Section 23.8 of the Standards of Maintenance Bylaw, it says the city can go in and do the work when a landlord is not keeping a place up to snuff. And if the landlord doesn't pay for that, the city can put it on his taxes, and if he doesn't pay his taxes, the city can take the building. It could become social housing. There's no reason why shouldn't be enforcing that, and they should be enforcing that. And if I get in there, I'm going to push really hard for that. There's this tenant relocation and protection plan. If the city, if a landlord comes to the city and says, I want to renovate, I want to kick these people out because I'm going to renovate it, which happens a lot, the city can say, well, before you do that, this is what we're saying, bring us a signed contract that the tenant can return at the same rent.
Mm-hmm.
That's using city powers. That would be a way of reducing rent evictions. Couldn't probably get rid of all of them, but could get rid of a lot of them, and it could be by using city powers. And the city could do it without any other level of government. So those are two things that are really important.
So recently we've seen the rise of hate groups organizing in Vancouver. We've seen Soldiers of Odin organizing in East Vancouver. There was a rally at City Hall where the mayor said that the city can't do anything. You spoke at that rally, Jean, and you were critical of that. Can you talk about what the city can do about these hate groups organizing in our city?
Well, I think the city just needs to investigate all avenues for trying to prevent people from spewing hate. There's just no excuse for it, and I think we should stop it.
I think clear direction to the Vancouver Police Department to thoroughly investigate those kind of activities and actually set up files on these guys, because currently I don't think we're doing enough investigative work on exactly the level of organization and what they're actually up to. And I think we should be. And I mean, I hate to suggest like increased surveillance of anybody, but I think when we're talking about hate groups, I think that's an appropriate place to start.
And Pete, you would be, if elected, joining Adrian Carr as a Green, and you would be independent. So one quick closing question. We'll start with you, Jean, and aligning yourself within the Sea of Vision members in the city. How will you navigate, and who will you work with as an independent?
Well, I would work with a lot of social movement groups. Mm-hmm. And I know Adrian has a deal with the NPA, I think, that if she makes a motion, one of them will second it. So maybe I could cut a deal like that. Okay. And
be careful what you wish for.
So, yeah, but the thing is, what I'd like to do if I get in there is open up City Hall so that justice-seeking groups can use it as a place to bring forward their issues, get support for it, push on all the other councillors to get support, push that process up to the other levels of government so that we can try and get the kind of city that we need. And in case this is the last question, don't forget to vote for Diana Day of Cope for school board.
Thank you.
And I'm Jean Swanson, independent for council.
So, and it's true. So oftentimes the issue at City Hall is in order to get your motion on the floor, you need a seconder. Mm-hmm. So Adrian is forced to go to either Vision or the MPA and try and cut deals. Unfortunately, deals often come with strings attached, so those motions are watered down. Sometimes they just get flat out denied and they can't make it to the floor. And it's important to bring them to the floor because that's where the public debate happens. And that's where the opportunity for the public to see what's actually going on at City Hall happens. So that's a big motivation for me, is to get in there and allow us to support each other, to second each other's motions, to daylight a lot of this stuff that otherwise might get buried. And in case I don't get a chance to say anything more about it, we have 3 candidates for school board with the Green Party. Janet Fraser is coming back, and she, of course, was she had a tough time as the tiebreaker in the school board in the last election before they dismissed it and fired it with the BC Liberals. We have Estrelita Gonzalez and Judy Zykowski all running for school trustee in this by-election. My name is Pete Fry. October 14th is the by-election, and thanks.
That's it. Thank you both for being here, and don't forget to vote on October 14th.
Get involved.
I'm not surprised if Guangdong is the guy that's really behind the all the wealth and all the experience and all the power and all the goodness that in Chinatown. I mean, Guangdong probably is the, he may be the head right now of corporate Chinese North America.
Find that the spirit of Guangdong is all around us.
Well, Guangdong is looked on more than anything else as an ancestral god. But I think Guangdong is a spirit. He's a spirit that's alive. It's much more than simply an effigy or something of the past that you can tell little kids and there's a good story behind it. More than anything else, I think he exemplifies the spirit, and the spirit is what lives. And sometimes you see that spirit, a certain amount of pride, a certain amount of coming out and doing something that's beyond the call of your own duty or your confines, your own station in life, or even your own courage.